The blue waters of Nerion Prime bubbled with panic as another mining drone crashed through the coral cities below. Zefka pressed his webbed hands against the crystal viewing wall of the council chamber and watched his world die piece by piece. The machines had been eating their planet for 3 months now, and nothing his people tried could stop them. "Speaker, the outer reefs are gone," said Council Member Velna, her voice shaking through the water around them. "The machines took everything. The fish, the plants, even the sand itself." Zefka turned away from the terrible view outside. Around the circular chamber, 12 other Kithra floated in their seats, their blue-green skin pale with fear. They had tried everything they could think of. Their peaceful people had no weapons that could hurt the metal beasts. Their science could not understand how the machines worked. Even their attempts to hide deeper in the ocean had failed when the drones learned to swim. "What about the evacuation ships?" asked another council member. "Half our people are already gone to the colony worlds," Velna replied. "But the machines follow our ships now. They attacked the transport to New Reef yesterday. No survivors." Zefka felt his heart sink deeper. The harvesters, as they called the machines, were not just destroying his world. They were hunting his people across space itself. Soon there would be nowhere left to run. "There is one more option," said Elder Tikva from the far side of the chamber. The oldest member of the council rarely spoke, but when he did, everyone listened. "The old beacon." Several council members made sounds of protest. The beacon was ancient technology, left behind by a race that vanished long ago. It was supposed to call for help from anyone who might be listening. But no one had used it for thousands of years. "Elder, we don't even know if it still works," said Velna. "We don't know if anyone will answer," added another. Tikva swam slowly to the center of the chamber. His old eyes were serious as he looked at each of them. "My friends, we are dying. Our children are dying. If we do nothing, the Kithara will be just another dead race that the machines consumed. At least this way we try." Zefka knew the elder was right. They had run out of choices. "Where is this beacon?" "In the deep archives below the old city. It was sealed away because the ancestors feared what might answer such a call." "What did they fear?" Tikva was quiet for a long moment. "They feared that whoever came might be worse than whatever we were running from." The council voted. 12 hands raised in favor, only 1 against. Within an hour, Zefka and a small team swam down to the forgotten levels beneath their capital city. The water here was cold and dark, filled with the weight of history. Ancient machines hummed to life as they approached, recognizing Kithara life signs. The beacon was larger than Zefka had expected. It filled an entire chamber, its metal surface covered in symbols he could not read. But the control panel was simple enough. One large button in the center, surrounded by warning lights that still blinked red after all these years. "Are you certain about this, Speaker?" asked Velna, who had insisted on coming with him. Above them, the sound of another explosion echoed, through the water. More machines breaking through their defenses, more of his people dying. "I am certain," Zefka said. He placed his hand on the button and pressed down. The beacon came alive with a sound that made the water around them vibrate. Lights raced across its surface in patterns that hurt to look at. The machine sent its message out into space, broadcasting on frequencies that could reach across the galaxy. The message was simple. "We are dying. Please help us. Anyone who can, hear this. Please help us." Far away on the edge of human space, Captain Jake Morrison was drinking his morning coffee when the alert came through. He was a big man with short brown hair and tired eyes, the kind of person who had seen too much war already. His ship, the New Horizon, was on routine patrol near the colony worlds, checking for pirates and other trouble. "Captain, we're picking up something strange," said Lieutenant Amy Chen from the communication station. She was young and eager, fresh out of the academy with bright eyes and quick hands. "It's not from any human frequency." Jake set down his coffee and walked over to her station. The bridge of the New Horizon was small and cramped, designed for function rather than comfort. 10 crew members ran the ship, and they all knew each other well enough to work without much talking. What kind of signal? It's a distress call, sir, but the language is nothing I've ever heard. The computer is trying to translate it now. Jake frowned. First contact with alien species was supposed to be handled by special diplomatic teams, not patrol ships like his. But if someone was in trouble, he could not just ignore it. How far away? About 6 days at maximum jump speed, sir. The translation computer beeped and words appeared on Amy's screen. She read them out loud, her voice getting quieter as she went on. We are dying. Machines are eating our world. Our people are scattered. Our children are gone. If anyone can hear this, please help us. We have nothing left to give but our gratitude. The bridge went silent. Jake looked around at his crew and saw the same expression on every face. They all knew what it was like to lose people. They all knew what it felt like to need help that might never come. Amy, get me Admiral Hayes on the quantum link. Priority channel. Yes, sir. Within minutes, the face of Admiral Lisa Hayes appeared on the main screen. She was a stern woman with gray hair and sharp eyes, the kind of officer who made decisions quickly and stuck with them. Behind her, Jake could see the busy command center of the Earth Defense Force headquarters. Jake, I hope. This is important. I have 3 meetings and a budget review this morning. Admiral, we picked up a distress call. Alien origin. They say machines are destroying their world. Hayes leaned forward, suddenly very interested. Send me everything you have. Jake nodded to Amy, who transmitted the signal in translation. They waited while the Admiral reviewed the data. Her expression grew more serious as she read. Jake, I'm authorizing immediate response. Take the 7th Fleet and render assistance. Ma'am, shouldn't this go through the diplomatic corps? There's no time for that. If these people are really dying, every hour we waste means more lives lost. Besides, we can sort out the politics later. Right now they need help, and we're in a position to give it. Jake felt a familiar weight settle on his shoulders. Another mission. Another chance for things to go wrong. But also another chance to do some good in a universe that often seemed short on it. Understood, Admiral. How much force are you authorizing? Whatever it takes, Captain, whatever it takes. 6 days later, the human fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Narration system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the New Horizon and stared at the main screen in shock. What he saw was worse than anything the distress message had described. The system's 3 moons were gone. In their place, massive metal structures floated in space, each one the size of a city. Long mechanical arms reached out from these structures, tearing apart asteroids and small planets piece by piece. Thousands of smaller machines swarmed between them like angry insects, carrying chunks of rock and metal back to the main hives. My God, whispered Lieutenant Amy Chen from her station. They're strip mining the entire system. Jake counted the ships around him. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 assault carriers, and enough smaller vessels to blockade a solar system. When Admiral Hayes said whatever it takes, she had meant it. The 7th Fleet was designed to fight wars, not rescue missions, but looking at the mechanical nightmare in front of them, Jake was glad they had brought everything. Sir, I'm picking up signals from the planet, reported Amy. The aliens are still alive down there. They're using some kind of underwater communication system. Can you translate it? Working on it now, sir. Jake turned to his tactical officer, a young man named Pete Davis who had joined the crew just 3 months ago. Pete, what's your assessment of those big structures? Pete studied his screens for several minutes before answering. They're heavily armed, sir. Lots of point defense systems and what looks like mining lasers that could probably cut through our hull. But their design is focused on harvesting, not fighting. I think we can take them. Good. Amy, any luck with those signals? Yes. Sir, I think I've got a basic translation protocol worked out. The aliens are calling themselves the Cathara. They're asking if we're here to help. Jake nodded. Open a channel. Let's tell them the cavalry has arrived. Down on Narration Prime speaker. Zefka was in an emergency meeting when the translation came through. He had been hiding in the deepest part of the ocean city, surrounded by the last few thousand of his people who had not escaped to the colony worlds. The mechanical drones had been attacking their shields for hours, and everyone knew it was only a matter of time before they broke through. "Speaker, we're getting a response to the beacon," announced Communications Officer Nalfi, her voice tight with excitement and fear. "Someone has come." Zefka felt a wave of relief wash over him. After months of hopelessness, someone had finally answered their call for help. What do they say? They call themselves humans. They say they are here to provide assistance and eliminate the threat. The relief lasted exactly 3 seconds. Then Nalfi continued reading the message and Zefka felt his blood turn cold. They want to know our defensive capabilities and the location of all hostile units. They're asking permission to deploy nuclear weapons in our system. The chamber fell silent. Nuclear weapons were things of legend among the Cathara, stories told about ancient races that had destroyed themselves with uncontrollable power. No civilized species used such things. "Are you sure you translated that correctly?" asked Elder Tikva. "I double-checked it 3 times, Elder. They definitely said nuclear weapons." Zefka made a decision that he would question for the rest of his life. Tell them yes. Tell them they have permission to do whatever is necessary. An hour later, Lieutenant Commander Amy Chen piloted her shuttle down through Nerion Prime's atmosphere toward the coordinates the aliens had provided. She was nervous but excited. First contact with a new species was every communications officer's dream. Behind her sat Dr. Sam Parker, the fleet's xenobiologist, and a team of Marines led by Sergeant Rick Stone. Dr. Parker was a thin man with glasses who looked more like a teacher than someone who traveled with a military fleet. He spent the entire trip down reading everything they knew about the Cathara and muttering to himself about proper first contact procedures. "Remember, people," he said as they approached the surface. "We need to be careful here. These are beings from a completely different evolutionary background. Their culture, their way of thinking, everything about them will be alien to us." The shuttle broke through the water and headed down toward the lights of the Cathara city. Amy had expected something like the underwater cities in old Earth movies, but this was nothing like that. The Cathara city was made of living coral that had been shaped and grown into beautiful patterns. Lights flowed through the coral like blood through veins, and fish swam freely between the buildings. "It's beautiful," Amy said quietly. The shuttle docked at what appeared to be some kind of landing platform. As soon as they were sealed inside, water began draining out of the chamber. A few minutes later, a door opened and 3 aliens swam into the room. Amy got her first look at the Cathara and tried not to stare. They looked almost like humans who had adapted to live underwater. Their skin was blue-green and smooth. Their fingers were webbed, and they had gills on their necks that opened and closed as they breathed. But their faces were recognizable, with eyes and mouths in familiar places, and their expressions were easy to read. The one in the center wore something that might have been robes and carried himself with obvious authority. This had to be their leader. "I am Speaker Zefka of the Cathara Council," he said through a small device that translated his words into English. "We are grateful that you have come to help us." Amy stepped forward and tried to remember her diplomatic training. "I am Lieutenant Commander Amy Chen of the Earth Defense Force. We received your distress call and came as quickly as we could." "Speaker." Zefka looked relieved, but Amy noticed that his eyes kept moving to the Marines behind her. Sergeant Stone and his team were fully armed and armored, looking like they expected a fight at any moment. In the peaceful Coral City, they looked like invaders. "We are ready to provide whatever assistance you need," Amy continued. "Our fleet is prepared to engage the hostile machines immediately." "Your fleet?" Zefka asked. "How many ships did you bring?" Amy smiled, proud of the human response. "We brought the entire 7th Expeditionary Fleet, sir. 12 heavy cruisers, 4 assault carriers, and full support vessels. We're also prepared to deploy nuclear weapons against the primary harvester structures if necessary." The color drained from Zefka's face. Dr. Parker stepped forward quickly, sensing the alien's distress. "What's wrong?" he asked. "Did we say something offensive?" Zefka looked from Amy to the armed Marines to Dr. Parker. "How many beings are in your fleet?" "About 40,000 personnel," Amy replied. "Why?" And you brought weapons that can destroy planets? Well, not destroy exactly. More like clear orbital infrastructure and eliminate large hostile targets. Our nuclear weapons are precisely targeted for maximum effectiveness with minimal collateral damage. Dr. Parker watched Zefka's expression and felt his stomach drop. The alien looked like someone who had asked for help with a small fire and watched a volcano arrive instead. Speaker Zefka, Dr. Parker said carefully. When your people called for help, what kind of assistance were you expecting? Zefka was quiet for a long moment. When he finally spoke, his voice was very small. We thought perhaps someone might send advisors, or offer us shelter on their worlds. We never imagined. He gestured helplessly at the Marines. Your people brought an invasion force to save us. Amy looked confused. Sir, we brought exactly what you need to solve your problem. We're going to eliminate the hostile machines and secure your system. Secure our system? Yes, sir. Standard peacekeeping protocol. We'll establish defensive positions, patrol routes, and early warning systems to prevent this from happening again. Zefka realized with growing horror that the humans had no intention of simply destroying the machines and leaving. They were planning to stay. They were planning to turn his peaceful water world into some kind of military base. But outside, through the coral walls, he could see the lights of more harvester drones approaching the city. His people were dying, and these strange, violent aliens were the only hope they had. Very well, he said finally. Do whatever you think is best. Amy smiled brightly. Excellent, sir. Captain Morrison will be so pleased. We'll have those machines cleared out in no time. As the humans talked excitedly about their battle plans, Zefka wondered if he had made the biggest mistake in Cathara history. The humans seemed friendly enough, but they talked about weapons of mass destruction, the way normal people talked, about tools. They had brought enough firepower to conquer his entire civilization, and they acted like this was perfectly normal. Above them, the human fleet began moving into attack positions. Captain Morrison's voice echoed through the water as he broadcasted to his ships. All vessels, this is New Horizon Actual. We have confirmed hostile targets throughout the system. Rules of engagement are weapons-free. Let's show these machines what happens when they mess with innocent people. Zefka closed his eyes and prayed to the deep currents that he had not just traded one form of destruction for another. The battle began at dawn, though dawn was hard to see through the smoke and fire that filled the space around Nerion Prime. Captain Jake Morrison stood on his bridge and watched as his fleet moved into position around the massive harvester structures. Each one was the size of a small moon, covered in defensive weapons and surrounded by thousands of smaller drones. All ships. This is New Horizon Actual, Jake said into his communicator. Operation Hammer Strike is now active. Target priority is the command structures at the center of each harvester platform. Nuclear weapons are authorized for primary targets only. Down in the underwater city, Speaker Zefka watched the human attack through a viewing screen that showed the space above his world. What he saw made his heart race with terror and amazement. The humans were not trying to sneak past the harvester defenses or find some clever way around them. They were flying straight at the machines and shooting everything they had. They're insane, whispered Elder Tikva, floating beside him in the command center. Look at them. They're flying into the weapons fire like it doesn't matter. Zefka watched a human fighter craft take a direct hit from a harvester laser. The small ship's wing was completely destroyed and it was spinning out of control. Instead of trying to escape, the pilot pointed his damaged ship at one of the larger harvester drones and crashed into it at full speed. Both ships exploded in a ball of fire. Did that pilot just kill himself on purpose? Asked Council Member Velna, her voice shaking. I think so, Zefka replied quietly. I think that's how humans fight. Up in space, Lieutenant Tony Adams was having the best day of his life. His fighter squadron was flying cover for the bombers, and they had already destroyed 3 harvester defensive platforms. The machines were fast and their weapons were powerful, but they fought like computers. They were predictable. Humans were not. Fox Leader, this is Fox 3, came the voice of his wingman over the radio. I've got mechanical damage, engine is gone, and I'm losing life support. Tony looked over and saw his friend's ship trailing smoke and sparks. The pilot, a young woman named Kelly Brooks, was barely keeping her fighter under control. Fox 3, head for the carrier. You can make it. Negative, Fox Leader. There's a harvester command node right below me. If I change course now, the bombers won't be able to get through its defenses. Tony understood immediately. Kelly was going to ram her dying ship into the command node to clear the way for the bombing run. It was exactly what he would do in her situation. Copy that, Fox 3. It's been an honor flying with you. Same here, Fox Leader. Give them hell. Kelly's ship dove toward the harvester structure like a falling star. The machines tried to shoot her down, but she was moving too fast and too unpredictably. Her fighter hit the command node and exploded, taking out the entire defensive grid around that section of the harvester. Bomber Squadron, you have a clear run, Tony reported, trying to keep his voice steady. Fox 3 has opened the door for you. Down below, Zefka watched the explosion and felt sick. These humans were throwing their lives away like it meant nothing. How could any species be so careless with their own people? But the human strategy was working. One by one, the harvester structures were losing their defenses. The big human ships moved closer, firing massive weapons that tore through the machine armor like it was made of paper. Commander Rick Stone was leading a boarding party onto one of the smaller harvester platforms when he met his first mechanical defender face to face. The machine was twice his size, made of sharp metal and powered by energy weapons that could cut through human armor. It should have been an easy fight for the machine. It was not. Rick dodged the machine's first shot and ran straight at it, carrying a plasma charge that would blow a hole in the platform's hull. The machine tried to grab him with its metal arms, but Rick was faster. He slapped the charge onto the machine's chest and rolled away as it exploded. Area clear, he reported into his radio. Moving to the next section. Behind him, more Marines poured through the hole he had made. They carried weapons that fired explosive bullets and wore armor that could stop lasers. But what made them truly dangerous was that they kept moving forward no matter what tried to stop them. Dr. Sam Parker was working with a team of Cathara scientists in their underwater laboratory, trying to understand how the harvester machines worked. The aliens had been studying the machines for months, but they approached the problem like scientists. They wanted to understand everything before they acted. Look at this, said Dr. Nexra, one of the Cathara researchers. She showed Sam a piece of harvester technology they had recovered. The machines use these nanites to break down matter at the molecular level. We've been trying to find a way to disrupt the process without damaging the surrounding environment. Sam looked at the nanites under a microscope and nodded. Interesting. Have you tried turning them against each other? What do you mean? Well, if they're programmed to break down certain types of matter, what happens if you introduce them to other nanites? Do they attack each other or ignore each other? Dr. Nexra looked shocked. You want to weaponize them? Why not? The machines are using them as weapons against you. Fair is fair. But the environmental impact could be catastrophic. If the nanites mutated or spread beyond our control. Sam shrugged. Then we blow up that section of space and start over. The important thing is stopping them from eating your planet. Dr. Nexra stared at him in horror. The humans thought about problems in ways that would never occur to a civilized species. They were willing to risk everything, destroy anything, and sacrifice anyone to achieve their goals. It was terrifying, but it was also working. In space, the tide of battle was turning. The harvester machines had been designed to fight against civilized species who valued their own lives and worried about collateral damage. They had never faced anything like humans. Major Kate Brooks was coordinating the assault on the largest harvester structure when her communications officer brought her terrible news. Ma'am, we've lost contact with Bravo Company. Their transport was shot down trying to reach the secondary objective. Kate looked at the tactical display. Bravo Company had been carrying the specialized equipment needed to shut down the harvester's central processor. Without them, the mission would fail and the machines would simply rebuild everything the humans had destroyed. How many survivors? She asked. Unknown, ma'am. But even if there are survivors, they're trapped inside the harvester structure with no way out. Kate made a decision that would have horrified any sane military commander. All units, this is command. We're changing the plan. Everyone inside that structure has 30 minutes to complete the mission and get out. After that, we're hitting it with nuclear weapons. Ma'am, our people are still in there. I know. That's why they have 30 minutes instead of 5. Send the message on all frequencies. Anyone who's still alive in there needs to finish the job and run. The message reached Sergeant Lucy Morgan just as she was fighting her way through a corridor filled with harvester drones. She had been separated from her squad when their transport crashed, but she still carried the device that could shut down the entire platform. "Lucy, this is command," came Major Brooks' voice over the radio. "You've got 30 minutes to reach the central processor and get out. After that, we're nuking the whole thing." Lucy checked her ammunition. She had enough bullets for maybe 10 more minutes of fighting. The central processor was still 15 minutes away, and she had no idea how she was going to get out afterward. "Copy that, command. I'll get it done." Lucy started running. She fired at anything that moved, threw grenades at anything that didn't, and kept moving toward her target. When her rifle ran out of bullets, she switched to her pistol. When her pistol ran out, she used her combat knife. When machines got too close for her knife, she used her bare hands. She reached the central processor with 3 minutes to spare. The device she carried was supposed to be connected carefully to the right interface port after extensive analysis of the system. Lucy looked at the processor, looked at her device, and jammed it into the first slot she could find. The entire platform shuddered as its central computer died. Emergency lights came on and alarms started blaring. Lucy turned around and started running back the way she had come. She made it to an escape pod with 30 seconds to spare. As her small ship flew away from the harvester platform, she watched through the window as a nuclear missile from the human fleet hit her target. The explosion was bright enough to light up half the solar system. "Mission accomplished," she reported, grinning despite herself. "Target destroyed." Down on Narration Prime, Zefka watched the last harvester platform break apart and fall into his world's sun. The battle was over. The machines were dead. His people were safe. But as he looked at the human fleet regrouping in orbit above his world, he realized that the real challenge was just beginning. The humans had saved them, but they had done it in ways that no civilized species would ever consider. They had sacrificed their own people, used weapons of mass destruction, and turned everything into a weapon. And now they were staying to help with the cleanup. Zefka wondered what his world would look like when the humans were finished helping them. 3 weeks after the last harvester machine had been destroyed, Speaker Zefka swam nervously through the corridors of his coral city toward another meeting with the humans. The machines were gone, his people were safe, and he should have been happy. Instead, he felt more worried than ever. The humans were not leaving. What had started as a rescue mission was beginning to look like something else entirely. Human ships patrolled his solar system around the clock. Human Marines had set up guard posts on every moon and asteroid. Human engineers were building structures on his planet that they called defensive installations, but looked suspiciously like weapons. "Speaker, the human admiral is here," announced his aide, a young Kithara named Minta who looked even more nervous than Zefka felt. "Send her in." Admiral Lisa Hayes entered the chamber wearing her full military uniform and carrying a datapad thick with plans and documents. She was a serious woman with gray hair and sharp eyes that missed nothing. Behind her walked 2 assistants and a Marine guard who looked like he could fight off an army by himself. "Speaker Zefka, good to see you again," Admiral Hayes said, with a smile that did not reach her eyes. "I hope you're recovering well from the recent crisis." Zefka tried to match her smile, but knew he was failing. "Yes, Admiral. Thanks to your people, the machines are gone and my world is safe. That's exactly what I wanted to talk to you about. Keeping your world safe." Admiral Hayes activated a holographic display that showed the entire Narration system. Red dots marked human ships and installations which seemed to be everywhere. Blue dots showed Kithara settlements which looked very small in comparison. "As you can see, we've established a comprehensive defense network throughout your system. Early warning, stations, patrol routes, and rapid response positions. Nothing will threaten your people again." Zefka studied the display and felt his heart sink. The humans had turned his peaceful system into a military fortress. "Admiral, this is very thorough, but perhaps it's more than we need." Nonsense. You can never be too careful when it comes to security. These harvester machines might have been scouts for a larger force. We need to be ready for anything. But surely your own worlds need these ships and soldiers? Admiral Hayes waved her hand, dismissively. The 7th Fleet was specifically assigned to this mission. They'll stay here as long as necessary to ensure your safety. As long as necessary. Zefka wondered if that meant forever. There is one other matter we need to discuss, Admiral Hayes continued. Training. Training? Your people fought bravely during the crisis, but they lack proper military preparation. Colonel Torres has developed a comprehensive training program to help your security forces defend themselves. Before Zefka could object, a large human in military uniform entered the chamber. Colonel Ben Torres was built like a weapon himself, with broad shoulders and scars that spoke of many battles. He looked around the beautiful coral chamber like a soldier examining a battlefield. Speaker, it's an honor to meet you, Colonel Torres said in a voice that could probably be heard underwater without a translator. Your people showed real courage fighting those machines with nothing but fishing nets and mining tools. Thank you, Colonel. But we are a peaceful people. We don't usually need military training. Colonel Torres looked confused, as if the idea of not needing military training was impossible to understand. Sir, with respect, that attitude is exactly why those machines nearly wiped you out. Every citizen should know how to defend their home. What kind of training are you proposing? Basic combat fundamentals, weapons handling, small unit tactics, urban warfare, improvised explosives, hand-to-hand combat. The essentials. Zefka felt dizzy. The humans wanted to teach his peaceful people how to make bombs and fight in cities. Colonel, the Kythera have lived in peace for thousands of years. We solve problems through discussion and compromise. And how did that work out against the harvesters? Colonel Torres asked bluntly. The question hung in the water like a physical weight. Zefka had no good answer because the colonel was right. All their peaceful ways had been useless against the machines. We'll start with volunteers, Colonel. Torres continued. Just a basic course, 6 months of training, and your people will be ready for anything. 6 months. Zefka wondered what his people would become after 6 months of learning human ways of fighting. Would they still be the same gentle beings who had built cities of living coral and solved disputes with poetry contests? I'll consider your proposal, Zefka said finally. After the humans left, Zefka called an emergency council meeting. The 12 remaining council members gathered in the central chamber, their faces reflecting the same worry he felt. They want to turn us into soldiers, said Elder Tikva, his old voice shaking with emotion. They want to teach our children how to kill. Maybe we need to learn, said Velna quietly. The machines almost destroyed us. What if something like that happens again? There will always be something, said another council member. If we start thinking like warriors, we'll see enemies everywhere. The debate continued for hours, but it was interrupted by an urgent message from the orbital stations. 3 ships had just entered the system, and they were not human. On the bridge of the New Horizon, Captain Jake Morrison watched the alien vessels approach on his main screen. They were beautiful ships, long and graceful with surfaces that seemed to shimmer in the starlight, nothing like the brutal functional designs of human warships. Sir, we're getting a transmission, reported Lieutenant Amy Chen. It's in a language our computers recognize, the Zenthari Collective. Jake had heard of the Zenthari. They were supposed to be one of the most advanced and peaceful civilizations in the galaxy. If they were here, it probably meant the news of human involvement in the Kythera system had spread, put them through. The main screen shifted to show the interior of the alien ship. The being who appeared was tall and thin, with pale blue skin and large eyes that seemed to hold ancient wisdom. Its voice was soft and musical when it spoke. Greetings, unknown vessels. I am Ambassador Selwyn of the Zenthari Collective. We received reports of a crisis in this system and came to offer assistance to our Kythera friends. Jake stepped forward. Ambassador, I'm Captain Morrison of the Earth Defense Force. The crisis has been resolved. The Kythera are safe. Ambassador, Selwyn looked confused. Earth Defense Force? I'm not familiar with your species. Are you perhaps a local security organization? We're human, Ambassador. And no, we're not local. We came from our own space to help when we received the Kythera distress call. The ambassador's large eyes grew, even larger. You traveled from another star system to provide military assistance to a species you had never met? Of course. They needed help. Ambassador Selwyn was quiet for a long moment, clearly trying to process this information. On most civilized worlds, military forces were used only for the most extreme emergencies, and only after months of careful consideration. How many ships did you bring to resolve this crisis? The full 7th Expeditionary Fleet, about 40,000 personnel and supporting vessels. The ambassador's face went pale. 40,000 soldiers was enough to conquer most civilized worlds. The humans had brought an invasion force to help with what should have been a refugee crisis. Captain Morrison, with the greatest respect, don't you think such a large military presence might be excessive for a rescue mission? Jake looked genuinely confused. Ambassador, the Kythera were facing extinction. How could any response be excessive? But surely now that the immediate threat has passed, you'll be withdrawing. Your forces? Withdraw? Why would we withdraw? We need to make sure this doesn't happen again. We've established permanent defensive positions throughout the system. Ambassador Selwyn realized with growing horror that the humans had no intention of leaving. They had turned a rescue mission into a military occupation, and they seemed to think this was perfectly normal. Captain, perhaps we could discuss this further. Would it be possible for me to visit the surface and speak with the Kythera leadership? Of course, Ambassador. But you'll need to follow our security protocols. Colonel Torres will need to inspect your ship and provide you with an escort. Security protocols? Standard procedure for any foreign vessel entering a protected system. Nothing to worry about. Ambassador Selwyn ended the transmission and turned to his crew with an expression of pure terror. The humans were treating the Kythera system like a military base and expecting other species to ask permission just to visit. Navigation officer, prepare to leave this system immediately, he ordered. Sir? What about our diplomatic mission? There's nothing to negotiate. The humans have claimed this system, and they have enough firepower to enforce that claim. We need to warn the collective about this new species before they decide to help anyone else. Down on Nerion Prime, Zefka received the news that the Zenthari ship was leaving without even landing. Ambassador Selwyn had sent a brief message saying that the collective would respect human authority in the system and wished the Kythera well in their future endeavors. It was a polite way of saying that the rest of the galaxy was now afraid to visit his world. Zefka floated in his office and looked out at the human ships patrolling his skies. His people were safe, but they were also prisoners in their own system. The humans would none. 6 months had passed since the humans first arrived in the Nerion system, and the galaxy was starting to notice. Admiral Lisa Hayes stood in the command center of her new orbital station, looking down at the blue world below. What had once been a simple rescue mission had become the foundation of humanity's first major presence in this part of space. The station itself was a marvel of human engineering. Built from the remains of harvester machines and new materials brought from Earth, it could house 50,000 people and defend an entire solar system. The Kythera had watched in amazement and terror as the humans built it in just 4 months, working around the clock in conditions that would kill most species. Admiral, we have incoming ship, reported Commander Pete Davis from the sensor station. Multiple vessels, unknown configuration. Lisa turned to look at the main display. 5 ships were approaching the edge of the system, moving slowly and broadcasting peaceful intentions on all frequencies. They looked different from any vessels in the human database, with smooth curves and what appeared to be organic components. Amy, are you getting anything from the communication arrays? Lieutenant Commander Amy Chen, now the station's chief communications officer, worked quickly at her console. Yes, ma'am. They're requesting permission to enter the system for diplomatic purposes. They say they represent something called the Galactic Peace Council. Lisa had never heard of the Galactic Peace Council, but the name suggested they were probably more aliens wanting to talk instead of fight. In her experience, species that called themselves peaceful Usually stayed that way right up until someone stronger showed up. Grant them permission to approach, but keep all defensive systems active. And get Captain Morrison up here. 20 minutes later, Jake Morrison arrived on the command deck looking tired but alert. He had been down on the planet working with Colonel Torres on the Kythera training program, which was progressing better than anyone had expected. The aliens were quick learners when it came to military tactics, even if they still looked uncomfortable, holding weapons. What's the situation, Admiral? Diplomatic visitors. 5 ships, peaceful intentions, something about a galactic council. Thought you might want to handle first contact since you've got experience with these people. Jake nodded and took his position at the center of the command deck. Amy, open a channel. The main screen shifted to show the interior of the lead alien vessel. 5 different beings sat around a curved table, each one representing a different species. Jake recognized the tall, pale one as a Xanthari like the ambassador who had fled the system months ago. The others were new to him. The being in the center appeared to be in charge. It looked almost human except for golden skin and eyes that seemed to glow with their own light. When it spoke, its voice was formal and careful. Greetings, humans of Earth. I am Counselor Ondel of the Galactic Peace Council. We represent the major civilized species of this region of space. Welcome to the Narration system, Counselor. I'm Captain Morrison. How can we help you? Counselor Ondel exchanged glances with the other beings at the table before continuing. Captain, we've come to discuss your activities in this system. Your military presence here has caused significant concern among the peaceful species of this region. Jake looked confused. Our military presence, we're here to protect the Kythera from future threats. I would think other peaceful species would appreciate that. The concern, Captain, is the scale of your presence. You have established what appears to be a major military base in a system that was previously neutral space. We established defensive installations to prevent another harvester attack. The Kythera requested our help. Another being at the table leaned forward. This one looked like a large insect with multiple arms and compound eyes. When it spoke, its voice buzzed strangely through the translator. Captain Morrison, our records show that you brought 40,000 military personnel to resolve what should have been a refugee crisis. Your response was disproportionate to the threat. Jake felt his temper rising, but kept his voice level. With respect, Counselor, the threat was the complete extinction of an entire species. How exactly is any response disproportionate to that? The beings on the screen looked uncomfortable. Counselor Ondel tried again. Captain, we understand your desire to help, but your methods concern us: nuclear weapons, planetary bombardment, military occupation. These are not the tools of a peaceful species. We use the tools necessary to save innocent lives. Would you have preferred that we let the Kythera die while we held committee meetings? The insect being made a chittering sound that might have been laughter or distress. Captain, in civilized space, conflicts are resolved through negotiation, mediation, and careful diplomatic process. Military force is used only as a last resort, and only with the approval of the Galactic Peace Council. Jake stared at the screen in disbelief. You're telling me that if someone calls for help, we're supposed to ask your permission before we respond? That is correct. The Peace Council exists to prevent exactly this kind of unauthorized military action. Admiral Hayes stepped up beside Jake, her face showing the kind of expression that made junior officers find urgent business elsewhere. Counselor, let me make sure I understand this correctly. You're upset because we saved an entire species without filling out the proper paperwork? Admiral, you don't understand the delicate balance of power in this region. Your presence here threatens the stability that has maintained peace for centuries. What kind of peace allows innocent people to be slaughtered by machines while bureaucrats debate proper procedures? The Xanthari representative finally spoke up, his musical voice tense with emotion. Admiral, your species has introduced military technology and tactics that could destabilize the entire galactic community. We've received reports that you're training the Kythera in warfare. Colonel Torres chose that moment to enter the command center, followed by a group of Kythera wearing human military gear. Speaker Zefka was among them, looking strange but determined in his combat armor. Admiral, sorry to interrupt, Torres said cheerfully. The The Kithara volunteers have completed their basic training. They wanted to thank you personally for the opportunity to learn proper defensive techniques. The beings on the screen went very quiet as they stared at the armed Kithara. Zefka stepped forward and spoke directly to the camera. Counselors of the Peace Council, I am Speaker Zefka of the Kithara. 6 months ago my people were dying and your peaceful methods offered us no salvation. The humans came when no one else would. They saved us when no one else could. If that threatens your stability, perhaps your stability was not worth preserving. Counselor Andel looked like he had swallowed something unpleasant. Speaker Zefka, surely you must understand that this level of militarization is not necessary for your protection. Counselor, with respect, where was the Peace Council when we sent our distress call? Where were your negotiations when the machines were eating our children? The humans responded in 18 hours. You took 6 months just to send a diplomatic mission. The silence on the alien ship was deafening. Finally, the insect being spoke again. What do you want from us humans? What are your intentions in this region of space? Admiral Hayes answered without hesitation. We want to help people who need help. We want to stop bad things from happening to good people. And we want to do it without asking permission from committees that think paperwork is more important than lives. And if other species object to your methods, then they're welcome to object, but they're not welcome to stop us from helping people who ask for our help. Jake stepped forward again. Counselors, let me make this simple. We didn't come here to conquer anybody or threaten your peace. We came because someone was in trouble. If that happens again, we'll respond again. If you don't like how we do things, you're welcome to do them better. But you're not welcome to tell us we can't help. The transmission ended abruptly as the alien ships cut communication. Within an hour, all 5 vessels had left the system at maximum speed. Well, that went well, Torres said with a grin. I think we made some new friends. Amy was monitoring long-range communications and her expression was worried. Admiral, I'm picking up a lot of chatter on alien frequencies. The word human is appearing a lot, along with terms that translate roughly to dangerous, unpredictable, and militaristic. Let them talk, Lisa said. Actions speak louder than words. Speaker Zefka looked out through the station's windows at the human fleet patrolling his system. His people were safe, stronger than they had ever been, and protected by beings who would fight the entire galaxy if necessary to keep them that way. He thought about the message that had started it all, the desperate plea for help that had brought these strange, violent, wonderful humans to his world. On his desk, he kept a draft of a new message, one that would go out on all frequencies to anyone who might be listening. To anyone in danger, anyone facing extinction, anyone who needs help. There is a species called humans. They will come if you call. They will fight for you. They will die for you. They will save you. But be warned, once they decide you are worth protecting, they will never leave you alone again. They will make you stronger than you ever wanted to be. They will teach you to fight battles you never wanted to.